Welcome to Unhinged Magi! We're back again, gonna be unhinged.
Very unhinged.
Yes.
Because we're like, notice it's magi, it's plural.
Exactly. There's no S at the end.
Nope.
And doesn't that make you wish that English was dead? Because it should be Magi's.
Yeah, the English language is honestly terrible.
It is.
There's so many places, like, why have silent letters? That's a question I would like to have answered.
Like night. It's called Knigget.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Monty Python made fun of that. You and all your English
Kniggets.
Seriously though, why do they do that? Why write a letter and then be like, don't say
do
it.
that one.
Yeah, but you wrote it, but you don't say it.
No.
Seriously.
And the ch sounds always says like ch except for chef.
Yeah.
Which is the sh sound.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's a rule. Okay, we just broke it.
Yep.
Now here's a rule. Oh, okay, sorry, we broke that
again. But you know what? There's also other rules for Magic the Gathering. Sort of. Like an unspoken rule.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you have to pay to win, or you can play to
pay to play. Yep.
Right? So is it yin or yang? If I have the most money and the best money cards, do I always win? Is that really kind of the deal?
Many people think that is actually the case for Magic.
But is it? No.
There are corner cases, but I'd say for the most part, no.
Yeah. For the most part, no. Because you can actually create really good decks with some of the lower class cards, even especially in Standard. Mm-hmm. In Standard, you can actually pick really that $2 cards, and suddenly you're making decks and you're going straight up banging up to Mythic. I have a Rogue deck in my Open Boosters actual channel, which actually, if I bought it, it's like only like $30, and I very rarely lose with it because I'm throwing everybody's stuff into the graveyard, and believe it or not, they have Turn-On Script, and I throw all their stuff away.
Yep.
It's good, right? And it's not that expensive. But if I got the big King Dingling cards of current Standard,
mm-hmm.
I still beat them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not that. It's not. You don't really have to go crazy with the money in Standard.
Now that's an example of good deck design, good playability, and cards that were designed at least well enough to make that possible.
Right, exactly.
Which I think is great, actually. I would very much like to see more formats where there's like more decks that can possibly compete, and someone could literally show up with a very well-designed deck of like commons and uncommons and do well at a tournament. I think that's a healthy thing for Magic overall.
Exactly. And then we also have, even in old school, you can get really cheap decks, well, cheap-ish decks, because old school decks are going to carry some more weight.
They do.
All right. But you can still make affordable decks inside old school that actually can win the game. Edwin knows about the Merfolk deck in more detail.
Yep. Yeah, there's well, that was a vintage deck I was referring to.
Oh, okay.
I'll come back to that. But yeah, in old school, I even made a whole video series on the budget decks where I was listing out monocolored decks without dual lands or anything, one in each color, and they were actually decently competitive decks. In fact, one guy joined us on one of our last gameplay live streams, and he played the blue deck against me and actually killed me with my own budget deck, which was fantastic, actually. But yeah, you can actually do that. And okay, the one that Dan was just mentioning is a few years ago, there was a Vintage World Championship. And now, again, this is vintage. This is the most expensive, exclusive format that there basically is, like at least at that time, right? Well, a Merfolk deck, a blue, I think it was mono or nearly monocolored blue Merfolk deck actually came out and won the Vintage World Championships.
Good Lord.
And that just sent ripples through the community because, first of all, that's just amazing that can actually happen, right? But that's a good thing, to see that in a format. And I've watched guys show up at a Legacy tournament, just show up with Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, Incinerate, what is the Fire Blast?
Fire Blast.
Yeah, the one that sack 2 mountains and finish them off. I've seen decks show up with just that stuff and take out most of their opponents, if not make a good run at top 8. And there's nothing to that deck, and it's just inexpensive common cards mostly, right?
Yep. And so I've taken out him with Howling Mine.
Howl from Beyond.
Howl from Beyond.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. You have killed me with that Howl from Beyond.
And I just have to say that.
It was especially, I had just teased him about Howl from Beyond.
He said nobody plays that in old school.
And then he killed me with it.
Yeah.
That's karma for you. That's how that goes. And boy, did he enjoy that.
I did. I really did.
So although there is some aspect to pay to win, and the way, I mean, you can't deny it entirely. It does exist, but the way I think it more exists is like if you have a whole bunch of like cards in a format and you can build a variety of decks, then you can adjust to the meta. Like if everybody shows up very heavy green, white, maybe you can go black, red for a while. And if you have the cards in your base to support it, then you can do that. So I do think there's an aspect there where if you have a large collection and you understand the cards pretty well, that you can gain advantage where someone else is like, if all they have is like that one deck, right? You know what that person's going to play. You can plan for it before you see them at the tournament, right? And so like they're kind of like not a non-threat, but someone that can rotate, there is some threat there.
Yeah, exactly. But it's still great to see when other people actually create new decks, because let's say you're just starting out and you have a nice standard deck and all the new standard cards that come out, and nobody really knows which ones are going to be really the high price values or what is going to be the next top
when new
tier,
sets are released,
right? And you right there looking at me, you see what this card can do and interact with something else inside standard that nobody else sees.
Mm-hmm.
You go out and you buy those cards, you make that deck. It's a cheap deck at that moment, and then you make it, you go play it, you win some tournaments, and then suddenly that card becomes almost a king dingling card of the set.
Right. And it wouldn't be correct to look at that 3 months after the fact and say, oh, well, this is an expensive deck. Expensive decks always win. No. That deck became expensive. It started out a cheap deck, but it became expensive because it was good.
Exactly.
So the challenge is being that guy,
Yeah.
the guy that actually designed that deck and took it from like know nothing, waitress that's working at her local Applebee's to suddenly being a movie star, right?
Exactly.
You want to be the person that finds that talent and brings her out and makes her a movie star.
And that makes you a legend. That makes you awesome when you can do that.
Actually, yeah, I have the most respect for if people can walk into a format, especially one that's existed for a while, and they can be like, boom, here's the new deck that I made. And everyone's looking at it like, my gosh, I've never seen that before. And then it does something amazing and wins. For me, that's like
Top
tier one. Tier
Yeah.
one respect, right?
Exactly. And nobody can take that away from you once you've done it. And I think that should be the strive for every Magic the Gathering. It's not, hey, I'm going to look up what line was currently being used so I can use it in my tournament. It's about what you created.
Yeah.
That part of the spark of Magic the Gathering has always been amazing to me.
In fact, when the standard format for a long time became about just net decks, here's like one or two decks that are the big decks and they win the tournament every time and they've got these certain expensive cards, that completely turned me off to standard. In fact, that was why I stopped playing standard, was that kind of effect. When I could spend hours sitting there trying to piece together like decks with other cards and make other combos, and just all of it lost to the tier one deck. And I'm just like, forget it, I'm done. And I would go play other formats. So yeah, thankfully Wizards is, I think, attempting to go away from that. They're attempting to get more diversity in there. And you said you're seeing that in Arena, right?
I'm seeing that a lot in Arena. Yeah.
That's really good.
And usually the tier one decks are usually losing to any other deck that's not tier one late related.
Yeah, which really begs the question of like, were they really tier one? Like tier one in comparison to what? If you show up in a meta and you get your butt handed to you, then maybe you weren't tier one.
Yeah, exactly.
Tier one's supposed to mean that you take out most of the meta.
Now there's some combos that if they get the cards in their hand, you're going to lose. Period.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you get these three cards in your hand, you can lose. You're going to lose by turn 3, no matter what you do.
Mm-hmm.
But the odds of you getting that consistently in your hand is the hard part.
Yeah, those kinds of decks have always been, they've been a real gamble to take to a tournament, because like you'll get a few really hard, very satisfying wins against a few people, but like a deck like that, you'll almost never win a big tournament, because when you go like 8 rounds of Swiss and then you cut to top 8 or top 16, you're never going to make it through those rounds of Swiss with a deck that's inconsistent like that.
Exactly.
So you'll never make top 8, or very unlikely make top 8 with a deck like that. But you'll beat the snot out of some people, though.
No, yeah. You'll get that turn 3 win
Uh-huh.
on me usually.
Yep. So we also mentioned the whole aspect of pay to play. And see, this is an interesting topic because Magic was never intended to be free, right? So Arena aside, I'm talking paper Magic here. paper Magic was always intended to have a price. It's not free, and they never intended it to be $100,000 per deck, but there is a price somewhere in there. I would say, I think Wizard targets $50 to $400 generally, is what they try to make that somewhere around that base cost be to buy into a format and play it. Because like I don't see Wizards complaining about decks that are in that kind of range, and standard decks for an awful long time have been in that kind of range, and like they seem to be perfectly fine with it. So I think that's about what they're looking for. It's $50 to $400 somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But that's good though.
Keeps it low, keeps people to be able to come in. That's the thing. You want to keep users coming in and playing. That's the idea.
Yep. Yeah, you don't want it to be like completely free, because there's something to be said for like, you know, buying your game pieces to enter like a game and play. Like if you're going to play soccer on your local team or something, you got to buy the cleats, you got to buy the shin guards, you got to buy the big socks, and then like, you know, the
and the hot dog for the end of the game.
Yeah. So you got to get some basic things, right? So like, but there's some cost of entry, but then you go compete. And I do think that is what they're
sit
trying
on
to
the
target.
bench. That's the fun part. You watch all the other kids get sweaty, and you're just sitting there going, "Man, I'm glad it's not me on that field."
And so I've had some discussions with people also about they were disagreeing that proxies are good, and they would mention like, well, I like the aspect that people have to, you know, collect, trade, purchase their cards to build a deck, and I agree with that. That's right, but that whole thing kind of went like off the rails when decks started getting up to like $5,000, $10,000. Now, literally, like $100,000 Magic deck, they exist, right?
They do.
Yeah, you've kind of left the farm when you start getting into that kind of expense, and the debate for proxies gets a lot stronger when you start getting to these valuations of decks that were never intended by Wizards or anything. Like they never in their wildest dreams thought they were ever going to get there. And in fact, like if they could, they would probably bring those prices down.
Well, they kind of caused that. They caused that
they
with
did.
the reserve list and
They
all
did.
that kind of stuff. So that was inevitable.
Yep.
What they shouldn't have done was reprint so quickly. That was the big mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying that you want there to be, there's a balance between these two worlds. You want there to be a cost of entry to play in a paper format. But if it gets too high, that's where it starts to become ridiculous. And that's where proxies start to make more sense. So I would never like argue to have proxies in like standard or extended.
Right.
Maybe not even modern.
It depends on, well, how far does Modern go back?
8th edition or something.
Yeah, maybe not that far.
So anyways, I would never advocate for proxies in those formats. I think proxies have a good argument.
They can reprint in all Modern, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So I think proxies have a lot better justification when you're talking about vintage, legacy, and old school specifically. Those formats. Yeah. I think the proxy argument is strong. But those are the formats where decks can be upwards of $2,000 and like up.
Exactly.
Right?
And also, Watsy, quit reprinting stuff so quickly.
Yeah, let people appreciate a little bit.
Holy poop. I mean, I'm just like, the reprints just come way too quick.
They do. Yeah, and I think that's very bad feels for a lot of players. I think that's actually why a lot of people are switching over to the Eternal formats recently. Because, you know, they spent all this money on these cards and then they just got reprinted into nothing. I mean, look at Tarmogoyf now.
I know.
He's garbage now
He's
compared
like
to what he was.
in every single freaking set that comes out.
And what's that one? The green lady that taps for a green, a white, or a blue when she's untapped.
Oh, you mean Noble Hierarch. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So like that card was like $100 card for a little while. Now it's like $15.
Yeah. So stop reprinting.
You gotta chill out on that a little bit, you guys. Because I mean, you're definitely like
killing it. You're killing it with the master sets, but you're doing the same freaking cards.
Yeah, again.
We need
again,
a new
and
CEO.
again.
That's what it boils down to.
We need him as CEO. That's what we need.
Yeah, we need me as a CEO. We need a new CEO. I'm sorry, you're fired.
You're fired.
If I could get controlling interest of Hasbro, I would definitely swap out that CEO.
Yeah, that would be actually wonderful if that actually happened.
Yeah.
Okay, so there you go, guys. There's our thoughts on the whole pay to play, pay to win topic for Magic that's been going on lately. I want to hear your guys' thoughts.
List them in the comments below.
Yep. And tell us what your favorite taco is.
Okay, fine. What's your favorite taco? Okay. Bye, guys.